When it comes to dating, men may put on a strong front, acting confident and in control, but the truth is, many of them carry deep fears they rarely express. These fears can shape how they approach relationships, how they treat women, and even how they open up emotionally. The problem is, most women don't realize these fears exist, and it leads to frustration, miscommunication, and misunderstandings. So, if you want to truly connect with a man and understand what's going on beneath the surface, you need to be aware of these three shocking fears that many men have when it comes to dating. One of the biggest fears that men have is the fear of rejection. Rejection isn't just about hearing no when he asks you out, it goes much deeper than that. Many men are terrified of putting themselves out there, showing interest, or making a move only to be shut down. It's not just their ego at stake, it's their sense of worth, their confidence, and sometimes even their identity as a man. A lot of men have faced rejection in the past, and those experiences stay with them. Some may avoid approaching women altogether because they don't want to feel the sting of being turned down. Others may come across as hesitant or distant, even when they're genuinely interested, simply because they don't want to risk getting hurt. And sometimes, if a man does express his feelings and he senses even the slightest bit of disinterest, he may quickly pull away to protect himself from further pain. Men fear rejection deeply, and this fear can shape the way they approach dating and relationships. From a young age, many men are taught that they need to be the initiators, the ones who make the first move, and the ones who lead in romantic interactions. While this can give them a sense of control, it also places an immense amount of pressure on them. Every time they step forward to express interest in a woman, there is a chance that they will be turned down, laughed at, or even humiliated. This fear of rejection can make them hesitant, causing them to overthink their words and actions or even avoid approaching someone altogether. For many men, rejection isn't just about the moment, it ties into their self-worth and identity. A man who experiences rejection repeatedly may begin to internalize the idea that he isn't desirable or worthy of love. This can create a cycle where he becomes more and more reluctant to put himself out there, leading to frustration, loneliness, and even resentment. Instead of seeing rejection as a natural part of life, some men take it as a personal failure, something that defines them rather than something they can learn from. This is why some men struggle with confidence and may seem distant or even indifferent in dating. This fear of rejection can also manifest in different ways depending on the individual. Some men cope with it by becoming overly confident, acting as if they don't care whether someone is interested or not. They may develop a player persona, convincing themselves that they are the ones in control, so rejection doesn't hurt as much. Others go in the opposite direction and become overly cautious, avoiding direct pursuit and waiting for clear signs of interest before making a move. This is why some men hesitate to ask a woman out, even when the attraction is obvious. They would rather stay in the safety of uncertainty than risk outright rejection. Social conditioning also plays a role. Men are often taught that their value is tied to their ability to attract women. If they get rejected, it can feel like a blow to their masculinity, making them feel like less of a man. This belief system creates unhealthy dynamics where some men may lash out at rejection, blaming women for being too picky or impossible to please. Others may withdraw completely, assuming that they will never be good enough no matter what they do. In the age of social media and online dating, rejection has become even more complicated. Many men experience ghosting, ignored messages, and flakeness, which only reinforces their fear. The digital world has made rejection feel more impersonal yet more frequent, making it difficult for some men to maintain confidence. This is why some men seem disengaged or hesitant when dating because deep down they are trying to protect themselves from the pain of rejection. Understanding this fear can help both men and women navigate dating with more empathy, recognizing that rejection is not a reflection of worth, but simply part of the process can make a significant difference. Men often struggle with the fear of not being enough, and this insecurity can deeply affect how they approach dating and relationships. From a young age, many men are conditioned to believe that they must be providers, protectors, and leaders. Society places high expectations on them to be financially stable, emotionally strong, and capable at handling any challenge that comes their way. When they feel like they don't measure up to these expectations, it creates a sense of inadequacy that can manifest in their romantic relationships. This fear of not being enough isn't just about money or success, it extends to emotional and physical aspects as well. A man may question whether he is attractive enough, charming enough, or even interesting enough to keep a woman's attention. He may worry that he can't provide the emotional support his partner needs or that he isn't as experienced as other men. These doubts can lead to hesitation, avoidance, or even self-sabotage in relationships. Instead of expressing these insecurities openly, many men hide them behind a mask of confidence or indifference, fearing that vulnerability will make them seem weak. The pressure to meet societal standards can make men overly critical of themselves. They compare themselves to others, measuring their worth based on their careers, physical appearance, and social status. If they feel like they fall short in any of these areas, they may assume that they are unworthy of love or that a woman will eventually leave them for someone better. This belief can cause them to withdraw emotionally or push away a potential partner out of fear that they will ultimately disappoint her. Many men also fear that they will never be able to fully satisfy a woman's expectations. They hear stories about men who were left because they couldn't provide enough or weren't romantic enough. They may have been in relationships where they tried their best but still weren't appreciated, reinforcing the idea that no matter what they do, it will never be good enough. This fear creates emotional distance because instead of taking the risk of being fully present in a relationship, they choose to hold back, protecting themselves from potential rejection or disappointment. This insecurity can also lead to overcompensation. Some men try to prove their worth by becoming workaholics, constantly striving for financial success to validate their value. Others may develop a tough guy persona, pretending that they don't care about love or relationships, when in reality, they are afraid of exposing their deepest insecurities. Some men turn to material possessions, believing that wealth, status, or a certain lifestyle will make them more desirable. However, these external validations rarely ease their internal fears. In today's dating culture, where social media creates an illusion of perfection, this fear is even more pronounced. Men see influencers, celebrities, and seemingly perfect couples and wonder if there will ever be enough. They might avoid serious relationships altogether, fearing that a woman will eventually find someone better. Understanding this fear can create more compassion and awareness, allowing for deeper emotional connections. Men often fear rejection more than they let on, and this fear can have a profound impact on how they navigate dating and relationships. Rejection isn't just about a woman saying no to a date, it runs much deeper. It ties into a man's sense of self-worth, confidence, and emotional security. Many men grow up being taught to suppress their emotions, to be strong, and to not show weakness, but rejection, especially from someone they deeply care about or are interested in, can shake that foundation. For many men, rejection feels personal. It's not just a simple no, it can feel like a judgment of their entire being. If a man approaches a woman and she turns him down, he may not just see it as her lack of interest, he might internalize it as a statement that he's not attractive enough, not successful enough, or not good enough overall. This fear can create hesitation, causing men to avoid making the first move, expressing their feelings, or taking risks in relationships. Instead of putting themselves in a vulnerable position where they might get rejected, some men choose to stay in their comfort zones, opting for casual dating rather than deep emotional connections. This fear of rejection can also show up in relationships. A man may be hesitant to open up emotionally because he fears his partner will not accept or understand him. If he has experienced rejection in the past, whether from a romantic partner, family member, or even society, he may carry that wound into future relationships. He might avoid deep conversations or expressing his true needs because he doesn't want to risk being dismissed or misunderstood. Instead, he might choose to act indifferent, distant, or even emotionally unavailable as a defense mechanism. The fear of rejection doesn't just affect how men approach relationships, it also affects how they perceive women's actions. If a woman seems uninterested or doesn't respond the way he hopes, he may automatically assume the worst. He may believe that she is playing games, uninterested, or looking for something better, even when that's not the case. This fear can lead to miscommunication and unnecessary frustration, causing men to give up too soon or shut down emotionally before even giving the relationship a fair chance. Many men also struggle with rejection because of societal expectations. There is an unspoken rule that men should always be confident, in control, and unbothered by setback. But the truth is, rejection stings. It can leave emotional scars that take time to heal. When a man faces repeated rejection, whether in dating or relationships, he may start to question his worth and even doubt his ability to attract or keep a woman. This can lead to self-sabotage, insecurity, or a defensive attitude that pushes people away. To avoid rejection, some men choose to settle for relationships where they don't have to put in as much effort or risk emotional exposure. They might stay in a situation where they don't feel deeply connected simply because it feels safe. Others may resort to avoiding commitment altogether, convincing themselves that they are better off alone than risking the pain of being turned down. Understanding this fear can help create a space where open communication and emotional safety become possible. Men fear not being enough, and this insecurity can shape the way they approach relationships, commitment, and emotional intimacy. At the core of this fear is the pressure to meet certain expectations, whether it's financial success, physical attractiveness, emotional strength, or the ability to lead in a relationship. Society often places an unspoken demand on men to be providers, protectors, and problem solvers. If a man feels he is falling short in any of these areas, he may question his worth and ability to keep a woman happy. This fear manifests in different ways. Some men overcompensate by working excessively, focusing on building wealth and success, believing that once they reach a certain level, they will finally feel worthy of love. Others withdraw emotionally, afraid that if they open up, they'll expose their flaws and be seen as weak or inadequate. A man who feels like he's not enough may struggle with expressing affection, making decisions in the relationship, or taking the next step toward commitment. He may hesitate to fully invest himself because deep down he fears that if he gives his all and is still not enough, he will be left with nothing. For many men, this fear is deeply rooted in past experiences. If he has ever been in a relationship where he felt unappreciated compared to other men, or told directly or indirectly that he wasn't meeting expectations, those words and experiences leave a lasting impact. Even if he is in a new relationship with a woman who fully loves and appreciates him, those past wounds can still cause doubt. He may question whether she truly values him or if she is simply settling until she finds someone better. This mindset can make him defensive, overly critical of himself, or hesitant to believe in the relationship's longevity. Men who fear not being enough may also struggle with vulnerability. Since they associate worth with achievement, they might avoid showing emotions that could make them seem weak. They may suppress feelings of sadness, frustration, or insecurity, trying instead to appear strong and in control. But this creates an emotional barrier preventing genuine connection. A woman may feel like he is distant or uninterested when in reality he is simply afraid that revealing too much will confirm his deepest fear that he isn't enough for her. This fear also influences how men react to challenges in a relationship. If conflicts arise, instead of working through them, he may retreat or shut down, assuming that he has already failed in some way. He might take constructive criticism personally, hearing it as confirmation that he isn't measuring up. Rather than seeing the relationship as a partnership where both people grow together, he may interpret every struggle as a sign that he is lacking something essential. This is why some men push away love even when it's genuine. They convince themselves that their partner deserves better, or they try to leave before they get left. When a man doesn't feel like he is enough, he may also seek validation elsewhere. This could mean trying to impress others, chasing external achievements, or even seeking attention outside of the relationship. It's not always about disloyalty, it's about needing reassurance that he has value. The challenge is that no amount of external validation can fully quiet an internal fear. True confidence comes from within, and until a man works through his feelings of inadequacy, he may struggle to accept and embrace the love that is right in front of him. Men fear rejection more than they often admit, and this fear significantly shapes how they approach dating and relationships. Rejection is not just about a woman saying no, it's about what that no represents. It can feel like a deep wound to a man's sense of self-worth, making him question whether he is attractive enough, successful enough, or even lovable enough. This fear is why some men hesitate to make the first move, why they might take longer to express their feelings, and why they sometimes avoid distant even when they're interested. For many men, rejection doesn't just sting in the moment, it lingers. A single painful rejection from the past can make a man more cautious in the future, making him hesitant to put himself in a vulnerable position again. If a man has been shut down in a humiliating way, ghosted after expressing interest, or led on only to be dismissed, those experiences can create emotional walls. He may start to assume that rejection is inevitable, leading him to hold back even when he genuinely wants to pursue a woman. This fear also plays a role in how men communicate. A man who is afraid of rejection may struggle with being direct about his intentions. Instead of making his feelings clear, he might test the waters, subtly dropping hints or relying on mixed signals to gauge interest before fully putting himself out there. He may hesitate to ask a woman out, avoid deep conversations about his feelings, or hold back from taking the relationship to the next level because he fears hearing no and what that no might mean. In many cases, men try to protect themselves from rejection by avoiding situations where they might face it. This could mean choosing to stay in casual relationships rather than risk committing and being turned down. It could mean playing it safe by staying friends with a woman he likes rather than admitting his true feelings. It could also mean retreating emotionally if he senses that a woman is losing interest, shutting down to avoid feeling the sting of rejection before it happens. Men also fear rejection because it challenges their masculinity. Society often teaches men that they should be confident, dominant, and in control. When a man gets rejected, it can make him feel weak or inadequate, as if he's failed in his role. This is why some men develop defense mechanisms like pretending they didn't care in the first place, acting like they're too busy to invest in a relationship, or even rejecting women before they have a chance to be rejected themselves. Men cope with this fear is through avoidance. Some men avoid relationships altogether, choosing instead to focus on work, hobbies, or superficial connections where they don't have to risk emotional exposure. Others might adopt a player mindset, pursuing multiple women at once to minimize the emotional impact of any single rejection. This isn't always about dishonesty, it's often about self-protection. If a man spreads his attention across different women, no one rejection will hurt as much as putting his heart into one person and getting turned down. Even in long-term relationships, the fear of rejection doesn't disappear. A man may worry that his partner will lose interest, compare him to someone else, or leave him for someone better. This can make him hesitant to be vulnerable, afraid that if he shows too much emotion or dependence, his partner will see him as weak and lose attraction. It can also lead to insecurities about physical intimacy, worrying about whether he is desirable enough or if his partner is truly satisfied with him. The fear of rejection isn't something men easily admit, but it influences nearly every aspect of how they navigate dating. It's why they hesitate, why they sometimes pull away, and why they may seem uninterested when, in reality, they are simply afraid of being hurt. Men fear not being enough. This is a deep-rooted fear that many men struggle with, even if they never openly admit it. It's not just about financial success or physical appearance, it's about feeling like they can truly measure up to the expectations placed on them by society, by women, and most importantly, by themselves. A man wants to feel like he is capable, strong, and valued, but if he doubts his own worth, it can create insecurities that show up in his relationships in ways that may not be obvious at first. For many men, their sense of worth is tied to their ability to provide and protect. Even in modern times where women are more independent and successful than ever, a man still wants to feel like he brings something valuable to the table. If he feels like he's struggling financially, not progressing in his career, or failing to reach his goals, he may start to doubt whether he is worthy of a relationship. This fear can make him withdraw emotionally, act distant, or even sabotage a relationship before it has the chance to grow. He may think that if he can't give a woman the life she deserves, he's better off letting her go than risking her leaving him later when she realizes he isn't enough. This fear of inadequacy can also show up in a man's ability to lead in a relationship. Many men want to be seen as strong and capable decision makers, but if they doubt themselves, they may avoid taking initiative out of fear of making the wrong move. They might hesitate to make plans, struggle with confidence in expressing their emotions, or avoid difficult conversations because they don't want to risk saying the wrong thing. This can sometimes come off as indecisiveness or a lack of interest, but in reality, it's a deep-seated fear of failing the woman they care about. This fear manifests in a man's need for validation. A man who questions whether he is enough might constantly seek reassurance from his partner, whether through words of affirmation, physical affection, or other signs of appreciation. If he doesn't feel like he is receiving that validation, he may start to believe that he's not measuring up, which can lead to frustration, self-doubt, and even emotional withdrawal. Some men, instead of openly expressing this need, will act as if they don't care, pretending to be detached when deep down they crave that recognition. In some cases, a man may try to overcompensate for this fear by focusing on external achievements. He might pour all his energy into work, chasing status, money, or material success in an attempt to prove his worth. While there's nothing wrong with ambition, If his motivation is rooted in trying to fill an internal void, he may never feel satisfied no matter how much he achieves. This can create a disconnect in relationships, as his partner may feel neglected while he is constantly seeking validation from his external accomplishments rather than from the relationship itself. Men also struggle with feeling enough in the realm of emotional connection. While women are often encouraged to express their feelings and lean on their support systems, many men are raised to believe that they should handle things on their own. Because of this, they may feel pressure to be the strong one in the relationship at all times, even when they are struggling internally. If a man feels like he can't show vulnerability without being judged, he may suppress his emotions, fearing that if he lets his guard down, he will appear weak or unworthy. Another layer to this fear is the pressure to perform in intimate relationships. Many men tie a significant part of their worth to their ability to satisfy their partner physically. If they struggle with confidence in this area, it can create anxiety, avoidance, or even resentment. They may not voice these fears directly, but it can show up in their behavior, making them more withdrawn, defensive, or insecure. This fear of not being enough can also lead to jealousy or comparison. If a man sees other men who seem more successful, more confident, or more desirable, he may start to feel inadequate in his own relationship. He may question whether his partner truly values him or if she secretly wishes she was with someone better. This can lead to possessiveness, control issues, or emotional distancing, all stemming from his own internal doubts rather than anything his partner is actually doing. Men want to feel like they are enough, but when they don't, it can impact how they love, how they connect, and how they show up in relationships. Understanding these fears doesn't mean excusing bad behavior, but it does mean approaching relationships with more awareness. When you recognize these fears in a man, you can approach situations with empathy instead of frustration. You can create a space where he feels comfortable expressing himself without judgment. And when a man feels safe, valued, and understood, that's when he truly opens up and builds a deeper connection with you.